Hello, good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all here at PyData Global Conference. As Mariam said, I'm Lalitha Krishnamoorthy. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Open Teams Global, and I'm excited to share with you some thoughts about raising awareness on inequities of data while we are building trustworthy artificial intelligence models. So AI is spreading ever deeper into businesses and the world at large, influencing life-critical decisions such as who gets a job, who gets a loan, and what kind of medical treatment a patient receives. That makes the potential risk of biased artificial intelligence models even more significant. The path to managing and mitigating this risk begins with understanding how such bias can occur and why it is so difficult to detect. And what this chart, just doing the basic math that I have on this chart, will tell you that more than 90% of businesses today has AI embedded somewhere in their journey and in their process. So AI is truly everywhere. This slide, what I'm trying to capture is from an overall leader's perspective, there's actually three business outcomes that bring the entire value of AI to businesses today. Obviously, the first one is enhanced decision making, the second one is around business transformation, and the third one's around systems modernization. AI promises a dazzling value beyond simple automation, right? We've come way past just using AI for automation. Objective, data driven, and informed decision making has always been the lure of AI, but brings with it the risk of in somehow or the other getting bias into these models. While that promise is within reach, businesses should proactively consider and mitigate potential risks, including confirming that their software doesn't result in bias against a specific set of people. And in this case, I have some examples here listed where it speaks to different companies and businesses that have actually used AI. They've gone all in on AI and have actually reaped various benefits from using AI to drive their business driven decision making. In this slide, what I'm trying to show you is where and how substantial AI value is realized. Now, across the board, you can see right from productivity through automation, through improving customer service, through improving decision making, we are seeing AI play its part in almost every different pieces of the journey that a company would have where they can actually use AI to support their decision making. AI adoption has become positively correlated with superior business outcomes in revenue, cost, and profitability, and this finding holds across industries and also regions. To help, for example, I'll give you a specific use case here. To help optimize pricing, for example, AI can input reams of historical data on product sales, margin, supplier costs, and customer satisfaction, then produce rigorous amounts and estimates of possible future scenarios. It can project how competitors and suppliers might change their prices in response to your decisions. AI combined with Internet of Things sensors can forecast machine performance and maintenance needs, enabling better operational decisions. With the rise in AI at the edge, AI combined with edge computing, AI algorithms are executed at or near device level. These decisions can be lightning fast as well. So then let's talk about the real core topic here, right? AI is powerful. I think we've established that. We've talked about the fact that it's extremely helpful and helping leaders make very data driven decisions. We've established that. We've talked about specific areas where AI has actually played a very significant role in providing a return on investment to businesses. Then the question then comes up, right? How do biases actually enter an emotionless set of algorithms? And to explain this, let me give you a perspective here. So people write the algorithms, people choose the data used by algorithms, and people decide how to apply the results of the algorithms. Without diverse teams and rigorous testing, it can be too easy for people to let subtle, unconscious bias enter, which then AI will automate and perpetuate. That is why it is so critical for the data scientists and business leads and product owners who develop and instruct AI models to test their programs to identify problems and potential biases. I'll give you an hypothetical example here to make the point on how important it is and why AI sometimes becomes biased. I think the definition of AI we understand, AI bias, it makes decisions that are systematically unfair to a certain set of people. So here's my hypothetical example. Consider the hypothetical example of an algorithm used to decide which patient should receive expensive continuing care for a chronic disease. The team that's creating the algorithm decided to base their model on past patterns of approvals for such care. They designed the algorithm to match this historical data set. So keyword here is historical data set, right? However, in this illustrative example, these specific patients who belong to a specific set of cultural regions, some of whom speak English as a second language and have difficulty navigating or not familiar with the US healthcare system, have difficulty, understanding the overall system and infrastructure, historically only requested and received this care for far more severe cases than the specific chronic diseases that they had. Without awareness of this fact and a determination to compensate for it, the algorithm will hypothetically continue to assign the care for more rarely to these patients, effectively automating discrimination. In this hypothetical example, here absolutely there is none of the authors of the algorithm or the business leads had any bias. They just neglected to evaluate the historical data set to determine if there were problems, and if so, to correct them. So this is the reason how and why AI becomes biased in our process. Now let's talk a little bit about why addressing AI bias is so challenging, right? We see the value of AI, we see the propensity for it to drive business results. We understand how AI bias is entering into an emotionless algorithm. We understand how this algorithm insertion of this bias into the algorithm can cause some really damaging results to the company. So then the question is, why is this addressing it so difficult? The fight against AI bias is filled with good intentions, right? So executives understand the need for responsible AI, that which is ethical, robust, secure, well governed, compliant, and explainable. So when there was a survey done, a full 50% called out responsible AI as one of their key areas to focus for their businesses as we go into the next year as one of their top three priorities. But what we're starting to see is that AI bias can be very difficult and it's an unusual challenge because there's a huge dependency on each organization's algorithms, the culture, the diversity, and their stakeholders. There are also very few standard metrics to measure fairness, leaving each company to kind of figure it out on their own. And in the absence of standards that apply universally and the diversity of AI usage, each organization should determine what kinds of bias are more likely to skew the algorithms it uses. Companies may also have to assess what would potentially cause the most harm to their employees, customers, communities, and business plans. There are NGOs, universities, and multilateral organizations around the world that are today working to better define AI bias and lay out principles and guidelines to help mitigate this. So, is it a challenge to address this bias? Absolutely, because a lot of it revolves around the data sets, the algorithms, how they're determined. It also is dependent on the organization's algorithm, culture, diversity, and stakeholders. So this leads us to a very interesting concept about the need for us to understand our actions so that the better we understand our actions, the more capable we are to stop and to limit and to be aware of the bias that we're introducing into our AI systems. So as AI becomes more advanced, humans are challenged to comprehend and retrace how the algorithm came to that result. The whole calculation process is turned into what is commonly referred to as a black box that is impossible to interpret. These black box models are created directly from the data, and not even the engineers or data scientists in our teams who create the algorithms can sometimes understand or explain what exactly is happening inside or how the AI algorithm arrived at a specific result. Now, this is because a lot of the data, like we talked about in the earlier slide, is historical data set that might be decades old that a company has on their legacy systems. And some of it is data that is just coming in through all of their different channels that they have for their business. So, addressing these questions is the essence of explainability, and getting it right is becoming essential. While many companies have begun adopting basic tools to understand how and why AI models um, render their insights, unlocking the full and why AI and value of AI requires a pretty comprehensive strategy. And what we're trying to explain here and show you is that as we move into the future, we're starting to see a need for machine learning techniques and frameworks that are more intuitive, that are autonomous, that have neurosymbolic AI built into them. They have intelligent and explainable machine learning models where we're able to explain the reasons and rationale for choosing a specific data set, and if we're able to trust the results and the insights that's being provided by the AI model. In this one, I want to draw your attention to something that is an explainable artificial intelligence model that I've been starting to read up more and more about, coming from our Department of Defense, DARPA's work that they're doing. And new machine learning systems, they have the ability and will have the ability to explain the rationale, characterize their strengths and weaknesses, and convey an understanding of how they will behave in the future. The strategy for achieving their goal is to develop new and modified machine learning techniques that will produce more explainable models. Like I said earlier, this is about us as data scientists, as AI professionals and practitioners, being able to explain our actions behind the kind of data set we use, the algorithms we define, and the decisions that are being given out by the AI models that we use to make business decisions. These models are going to be combined with like state-of-the-art computer human computer interface techniques capable of translating models into understandable and useful explanation dialogues. And the strategy that they're proposing is to pursue a variety of techniques in order to generate a portfolio of methods that will provide future developers and with a range of design options covering the performance and explainability as well. So we're not slowing down the model in order to make it more explainable. This particular example that I have here that I said, the explainable artificial intelligence, it's one of the handful of current DARPA programs that I'm aware of where they're expected to enable like a third wave AI system where machines understand the context and environment in which they operate and over time build underlying explanatory models that allow them to characterize real world phenomena. Now I'll talk a little bit about our ability to have making your AI responsible and what can we do as teams and developers around making your AI more responsible. So I think it's a fact that AI has become sophisticated enough to support and make very important decisions. That requires rigorous and sustained action to help make it trustworthy, reducing bias and possible risks such as bias can bring. So I want to share with you some best practices and some specific things that we can all do in your environments. If you're a data scientist, if you're an AI practitioner, or if you're a business lead or a product owner, there are some things that you can actually keep in mind in order to reduce AI bias in your models. The first and foremost thing is identifying, your is around thinking about your own unique vulnerabilities. So every business is different. So for example, banks, retail, utilities all face different kinds of risks when it comes from potential AI bias, where it could creep into data sets and algorithms, where it could cause major damage. Determining your own company's unique vulnerabilities, understanding your own business model, and defining bias for your specific AI systems is super important. So calculate the resulting financial, operational, and reputational risk that is to your business, and prioritize and focus the mitigation efforts where they matter the most. The other point here is around controlling your data. Like we talked about earlier, there is historical data sets that we use, there is real-time data that we use, there is data that, at scale. And the practice here is your traditional controls probably are not going to be sufficient and robust to detect the particular problems that can be caused or causing the AI bias. You should pay special attention to issues in historical data and data acquired from third parties. Also be aware of proxies or biased correlations in data sets that might happen. And for example, if you think that you're making your data colorblind, certain zip codes that may correlate that data used in the algorithm may still allow bias to creep in. So if well designed, you will have synthetic data created to fill gaps in your data set. The other thing that you could do is obviously you have to govern your AI at AI speed. As we know, AI is always on and may use data from across your organization that you may or may not be aware. Your governance should have your model that you have, your standards, governance, and compliance models within your companies needs to keep up with this. It should be continuous and enterprise-wide. This governance should include easily understandable frameworks which and toolkits which allow you to have common definitions and taxonomy and controls in place so that you can spot problems and your business users can follow the rules, so that this data and the bias data doesn't proliferate your entire system. So a systemic approach to continuous management of your AI models is absolutely required and critical for you to keep your business moving forward. The other thing that I would stress on is having diversity in your team, right? And now it's become even more important than anything. Recognizing bias is often, my belief is that it's a matter of perspective, and people from different backgrounds, from different gender identities, economic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, we notice something different, and everybody notices different biases. So building diverse teams will help you reduce the potential risk of bias falling through cracks. And a diverse team will bring together data scientists and business leaders, as well as professionals with different educational backgrounds and experiences, such as sociologists, lawyers, accountants, each having a slightly different perspective and lens on the bias and what they would call a bias. And each will have their own view of threat of bias and how to mitigate that. And finally, this is about validating independently and continuously. And so, what this means is just as you would for any major risk mitigation in your business or in your work, you typically add an additional independent opinion, right? You think about an independent line of defense, or you think about bringing a third party person with the skill set and proven methodology in order to get that opinion. That is sometimes required. This line of defense, could continually analyze your data and algorithms for fairness. Technology tools are evolving, but they're not at that point where they're able to help you narrow this down. But that is where some of the programs, like the one I shared earlier about the explainable AI and other efforts that are happening across, can help you reduce the AI bias so that you can spot and understand inequities in your data when you build out your AI models. I want to share. I had these couple slides here towards the end. I wanted to share this because I wanted to give you a perspective of where there is a lot of work and effort that's happening across, on a timeline that's happening across the world, where this building trustworthy AI models and being able to enable leaders and business owners and universities and academias across the world be able to trust the decision making and insights that are coming from their AI models. Like we talked earlier, right? 93% of companies around the world are saying they already are on their journey and they have AI embedded within their businesses. So it's no surprise that they're actually making day to day business decisions based on those AI models. So what it calls for, and this timeline actually shows you that from 2020, as early as 2020, when a lot more awareness started around, hey, we need to actually pay attention to these decisions that are being driven through these models, to as recent as July and this year, we're actually starting to see a very, very intentional effort across the board. So just to call out a couple of things, right? In September 2022, the Department of Labor announced efforts to ramp up reporting to protect worker organizing. So there's a very specific move there in September, to ramp up enforcement of surveillance, only required surveillance reporting to protect worker organizing. In October, as early as just last month, there has been effort here in the National Labor Relations Board. General Counsel issued a memo against unlawful electronic monitoring and automated management. And so the point of these two slides is to give you the hope and to share with you real data that there is actually work happening across the board, in an effort to minimize bias that is going in and the inequities in data that's resulting in bias in your AI models. And as we look at future and early 2023, the Department of Education actually will release recommendations on the use of AI for teaching and learning. And there is a lot more of efforts that are happening that are very intentional towards reducing this bias. Um, here are some references I have on topics, and I do want to share that the as part of Open Teams Global, in order to support our open source contributors around the world and to help open source thrive, we launched a global network of open source contributors. So the QR code here will take you to our page, and if you're interested, you could join our network of open source contributors. And there is an open hours at the end of our talk here with Travis, myself, and Fatma, where we'll talk about our open source professional network, our Open Teams Enterprise Solution Architect Network, and also share best practices on how you can use our Open Teams Health Score to pick the right technology stack for your open source projects. Um, with that, I want to say thank you to everybody for your time today. And if there are questions, I can definitely take them through chat.